KWS Feeris is the first variety with genetic tolerance to barley yellow dwarf virus to be added to the recommended list. We've talked about BYDV a lot in previous videos. You can see our video on RGT Wolverine, the first wheat variety to carry BYDV resistance. And if we go further back, we actually talked about Feeris's parent variety, KWS Amistar, which didn't make it to the recommended list, but was one of the first varieties in the UK to carry this genetic tolerance. Barley yellow dwarf virus is certainly a concern for UK growers, and we'll talk more about what BYDV tolerance means in the field later on in the video. But first, I'd like to focus on Feeris as a variety. Now, the first thing that you'll notice about this variety is that it's a 6-row. And we're more used to hybrid 6-rows in the UK, but this is a conventional variety. It's a feed barley, and it comes from French genetics, so both of the parent varieties for KWS Feeris are French. And that gives us a couple of things. It gives us really early maturity, so this will be one of the earliest barleys to come to harvest. But it'll also give us, as you've noticed, taller straw. That's probably the second thing that stands out about this variety. Compared to the 2 rows that we have on either side, it is a noticeably taller strawed variety. That shouldn't be a cause for concern, however, because like its parent Amistar, this is a barley variety with good lodging resistance and fairly good brackling resistance as well. So despite that height, at close to 1 metre of straw, I wouldn't be concerned as a grower. New genetic traits like BYDV tolerance often come at a trade-off in yield, and I'm delighted to say that that's not the case with Feeris. This actually performs very respectably. It sits on the recommended list with 103% of controls, and that's only a couple of percentage points behind the highest yielding conventional barley KWS Tardis. So this really is providing the goods in terms of grain, and it's also doing very well on grain quality. 6-row varieties often have a bit of a bad name for thin grains that can result in high screenings. But Feeris has performed well. In fact, this has got some of the lowest screening levels of any variety on the recommended list. Good resistance for Rhynchosporium and net blotch are countered by a lower score for mildew. So this variety will need looking after with a sensible fungicide program, but nothing out of the ordinary that you wouldn't be doing for your other barley crops. As with all barleys, PGRs are recommended, and you can see the height difference as we look back down the plot to the treated one behind us. When we put PGRs onto these barley varieties, it really does shorten the straw, giving us more security against lodging risk. The genetic tolerance to BYDV is what elevates Feeris from a contender to a variety that we should be clearly considering for sowing this autumn. BYDV has the potential to decimate barley yields in the UK, particularly in areas of the southwest and those that are closer to coastal areas where pressure from aphids is generally higher. With no insecticidal seed treatment to protect crops in the early stages, we've become increasingly reliant on either drilling later or using a large number of insecticide sprays to manage aphid populations. BYDV tolerance doesn't completely remove the need for insecticide sprays, but it gives us a lot more confidence that this variety will not suffer from the stunting and ultimately the yield loss that BYDV infection can bring. We would recommend that when drilled early, you still use insecticides on Feeris crops, and that is not so much about protecting the Feeris crop itself, but managing the aphid population that may be carrying virus and stopping it from growing and spreading to neighbouring crops. With seed genetics expected to take up more of the burden for managing disease and viruses in the future, it's great to see a variety like Feeris arriving on the recommended list, and it's a real sign of the potential within seed breeding to answer these on-farm problems without having to resort to chemistry. For that reason, I think forward-thinking growers will be looking to get on board with Feeris and build that genetic tolerance into their rotations. Seed should be available for this coming autumn, so do speak to your local farm trader or agronomist if you'd like to see how Feeris could work in your situation.